Check, check, check. Hey everybody, Benjamin here. Wanted to do another quick video. Something I've been really pondering a lot. The divorced dad to stepdad pipeline. The divorced dad to stepdad pipeline. And the reason why, this kind of manosphere, red pill content is mainstream at this point. If you haven't heard about it, good for you, then it's probably not necessary to you and you don't need to know it. Usually you don't really come across that type of content or conversations in person with people until it's necessary. It's kind of like one of those things like when the student is ready, the teacher will be revealed. And usually that means like a divorce, child custody. And so in this, I hung out with a bunch of guys last night, single, married, young single guys. I was trying to encourage this young single guy that just doesn't have any hope of finding anybody. And, we got to talking a little bit about like this content, red pill, just talking points and stuff. And he took it to somewhere that I just don't. And he really started talking about like Andrew Tate content and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. And so for me, I really realized that it has negative connotations, but for a lot of guys who've been divorced and have had child custody arrangements forced upon them, it's different. And so I just want to stay in my little corner. I shouldn't say it's a little corner. I want to stay in my corner and stay in my lane. And so all this other stuff that especially young guys associate with red pill stuff, like just hyper, just pickup culture and all this stuff, I just kind of, that's not my corner of that manosphere, let's say. Mine is getting through a divorce, for one, because you lose so much and you lose the love of your life, but then you lose your kids on top of it and your sanity. That's my corner, man. And that's where I'm staying. Father's rights. That's it, surviving divorce and overcoming those obstacles that divorce offers and hopefully getting better and improving yourself over time, and then fatherhood. That's it for me. So all this other stuff, the Andrew Tates and the escaping the matrix and Bitcoin bros and all this other stuff, it's like, I don't know about all that, man. All I know is I know what it's like when someone that you love tells you can't see your kid every day, and then the government backs that. Is unbelievable. And so the father's rights. So to the divorce line, the divorced dad to stepdad pipeline. The problem is with this type of stuff is once you see it, it's really awful and you can't unsee it. And a lot of guys have talked about, again, the red pill, kind of matrix setup is like with the one guy in the Matrix movie. It's like, put me back in the Matrix. I'm tired of seeing this. I don't want to see it, and plug me back in. And it really can be that way. It really can be that way. Once you see it, the post-marriage nation, the removing fathers from homes, erasing dads. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And then also just I'm not going to say it's forced because you have a decision. Most dads will not raise their kids. You'll be raising somebody else's children. And so what I mean by that is it's 13 in the West right now in America, it's 13% children that are raised by their original mother and father. Not a blended family, not grandparents, not some whoever, just whatever you think up now, kids are being raised that way, right? So it's 13% children that are raised with the original mother and father. So, and most of those kids that are in single parent homes, when they say single parent homes, they mean single mothers. They don't mean fathers, right? 90% of divorced children live primarily with their mother. She makes all the decisions, medical decisions, so on and so forth, right? So when you say single parent, you really mean single mother for the most part. So what I really started noticing, and then hearing a lot of other people talk about it, and seeing people in my own family. Now, you kind of hear the applause for um, stepdads. It's you're the dad who stepped up, something like that. Stepdad step up, or you were the dad you didn't have to be, or something like that. So there's a lot of applause for stepfathers, and yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I don't. Fair enough, right? I wouldn't discriminate against that. I've never really had a stepdad, not really. And so I wouldn't know. I wasn't really raised by a stepdad or anything like that. And I get chided by some friends from church that um, when I question it. That's all. When I question it. Now, I know some great stepdads that, in fact, I have to say this. I have to say this. Um, in the loss of meaning for men, because men, it used to be your God, your family, your role as a husband, your role as a father, and for country, and for liberty, things like that. Those things have pretty much eroded at this point. I'm not going to say fully, but for a lot of men, especially the younger men, those things of duty and honor, and it's gone. It's gone, right? But I do have to say, in um, let's say defense of stepdads, it really does give the man some meaning and some purpose. It really does give the man some meaning and some purpose. And so, to that end, a man striving, working, um, wanting to take that drive, that instinct to protect, to serve, to provide, is met in being a step parent. So to that end, I think it's a good thing. But the kind of I would say it's insidious, really, is you see the turnout of um, fathers in divorce, where most dads don't get 50-50 custody, and you still have to pay that other person that left. You still have to pay them to do that for many years. I have many years left of paying somebody who doesn't want to be with me anymore. Child support isn't an answer. Now, I'm not against child support necessarily, but 50-50 custody, letting good dads, be in their children's life, that should be the child support. You're supporting your children, right? You should not have to pay somebody. Good dads should not have to pay somebody to support their children when they'd gladly take 50-50 custody if they can get it, and you take care of your children on one side of the week, the other person takes care of the children on the other side of the week, or however you work that out. So if a woman divorces and then a custody battle ensues, and I'm saying this from experience. I've earned my stripes in this. I'm saying this from experience, having to go and sit in front of a judge and explain why I should have the right to be a father. And for the most part, I have a really good setup. For the most part. It's not ideal, but it's okay, right? having to having to fight to be able to see my child when that other, I'm not saying my ex has done this, but I know this. I have friends personally that I still talk to that have this experience. They don't have 50-50 custody. They had to fight for the time that they could get, but their ex could go meet a guy at a bar the next day after divorce, and that, if she allows it, that guy has more rights to your children than you do. This is the most unbelievable, lopsided mode of being. And when you go through it, this is what they call getting zeroed out. You cannot understand how this is even conceivable. It's inconceivable. when you have to do things like this. And again, I'm talking from experience, okay? Now, when you go from being in a home and you're trying hard to provide, and you're maybe not a great husband, but you're a husband, and you're working on yourself, and you're working on things, and you're trying hard, right? And then that's not good enough, and then a divorce happens, and then I've talked about this before. You're nixed as a father and relegated more to fun dad time versus like a parent, right? You want to be in your family so bad that it eclipses everything else. It eclipses everything else because you want your family back, and you want your parenting back, and you want your rights as a person back, and you want your home back. That it's very natural that Susie single mom, who's out in the dating world, trying to find a good daddy for her kids, however that went in their divorce, or they didn't ever had a marriage, or whatever it was, Susie single mom perhaps wants a father for their kids, or a good male role model at least. And so the male's natural drive is, I want to protect, I want to help, I want to serve, I want to provide. You want to do those things. It's natural and innate in you for good, decent men and good, decent fathers. And so what's interesting about that is that Susie single mom, and I'm not bashing on single mothers, okay? My mother was a single mother. I mean, everybody I know pretty much at this point has been single moms, seems like. And some of them are really trying hard. But the thing is they went through a divorce, and their dad, those kids' dad, went through the same thing that you did. And you end up becoming the stepdad that has more rights and time with those kids than the dad does. And it's this cycle. Right? So let me explain this really quick, and I'll wrap it up. Okay. So the divorce to remarriage kind of cycle. Here's how this typically goes, right? So not all, okay? There's no easy way to talk about it. There's no easy way to say it, okay? And not to let men off the hook, they're typically have some responsibility in the divorce as well, whether by commission or omission, right? So, mother, father, children, okay? If that wife starts surrounding herself with single mothers, typically it's at church, and she sees how these single moms are going out, they're having fun, they don't have to deal with a man's BS, they don't have to fight with a man, they can do what they want, they raise their kids how they want, women are strong and independent. This isn't a shocker to anybody, right? If I'm saying anything mildly offensive, then I don't know, good for you, you're living under a rock. And so they see this lifestyle that single mothers have, and then they desire that. And I won't talk about how that, I noticed a marked change in my ex when she started surrounding herself with single mothers. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Okay. And then she desires that as well. Single men keep women single. And they are drawn away and enticed, like scripture says, over to this band of single mothers that raise their kids how they want, spend their money how they want, live a different lifestyle than a married woman. Okay? This isn't rocket science, okay? And then they have their single mother kind of huddles and ladies' nights out, whatever, all these things, okay? Free from the man, you get it, right? And then once their group of single moms meets somebody, perhaps online, at work, whatever it is, And then that group of single mothers, once one of them peels off and has a second marriage, and then the other lady wants, well, God, I should probably have a stepdaddy too. And so they peel off and someone else gets married. And then there's this drive for them all to get remarried, right? And have a stepdad and all these things. Okay. So there is once you see it, you can't unsee it. Okay. Test that and see if that's right or not. Okay. I'm being honest. Test that and see if that's correct or not. Okay. Now, these dads who've been through divorce and don't see their kid as much, and they still have to pay somebody to not be in a relationship with them and all these things, and they got zeroed out, okay? Now, men are less and less inclined to do this nowadays, but nevertheless, that drive to be in a relationship with somebody is still there, and they still want to be dad, right? They still want to be a dad. They still want to have some semblance of family. But if you are a stepdad, men really want legacy. They really want legacy, right? They want a legacy. And I just had this conversation with a guy the other day. And partly why men want sons is because they want somebody to carry on their family name. They want someone else to have children in their name and in their image and likeness, as it were. Not to say that they're not all about having daughters, but many of them, like, oh, I have 2 daughters. I want to try for a boy. And then they have a 3rd daughter. Oh, I have 3 daughters. I still want to try for a boy. Does that make sense? And then they have another child, and it usually ends up being a daughter, which isn't a bad thing. Okay, don't hear that. Of course not. But the desire and the want and the drive for a man to leave a legacy, to leave something behind him when he's gone, and do his best to try to provide and teach and raise and guide and love and dote on a family is there. It's there. And if he can't get it with his wife, because they have a divorce, and he doesn't see his kids as much, or he's just been boiled down or relegated down to being a fun dad who gets them on the kids on the weekends and they can go out and stuff like that and have fun, you're missing a whole mode of being in your kids getting to have a father that disciplines, nurtures, protects, shows their children how to self-regulate. These kids are being raised 13% only, especially boys, seeing what it's like to see a man self-regulate. This is very, very, very important. Okay? These young men are acting out because they don't see a dad who gets up every day, puts his boots on, goes to work, gets the shit kicked out of him at work, comes home, loves on his spouse, spends time with the kids, spends time with the wife, spends time in a community or a church or anything like that. This is absent now in the West. This is almost absent now. What kids get is stepdads. Not always a bad thing, okay? But the dads don't get a legacy. They're raising another man's child. And then there's always the, well, you're not my dad. You can't discipline me. You can't teach me. You don't know anything. And it's like, this just goes on and on and on. Most men won't have a legacy with their kids. The family is so splintered and fractured now that it's expected. And so, guys who are going through a divorce, or you're in the custody battle, it's almost expected of us to be stepdads at this point. And you can be, and many stepdad stories end up very well, okay? And they do have some bit of a legacy, and maybe on a second marriage, they can have a child of their own, okay? But this idea of mother, father, kids is really fastly disappearing. And I would say we're post-marriage nation. Okay, so if you decide to be a stepfather and you're the stepdad that steps up, and you are the man that you don't have to be, and you find your role in that, and you find purpose and meaning, and um, hopefully God in that. Let's say your God-given roles as a man and your desire to be a father. If you find those roles met, thank God. That's amazing. But for those of us who've been through divorce and divorce court mafia has taken over your role as a father, um, it feels like the only thing left is to stepdad. Does that make sense? And again, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now, I'm not one of those like red pill guys, like don't marry single mothers, or because I don't know. I'm not in that situation. I don't know. I see why it happens. I see why women take advantage of that. They didn't want to be with their husbands. They're the baby's dads. That's very, very common that people don't want to touch it or talk about it. The church doesn't want to talk about it, for sure. And they actually want somebody else to have a family with. So anyway, fascinating topic to me. I see it all the time everywhere. And I think for me, the answer to that is, again, a religious awakening in the West. A religious awakening in the West. I don't know to what degree that will happen, but the more traditional type of churches, Catholic and Orthodox, I would say Orthodox, of course, because I'm Orthodox now, you don't have these problems. You don't have divorce culture in the Orthodox Church. Not to the same extent. Not even remotely close. Okay, so these more traditional modes of being and modes of family and modes of Christian ethics and values is the way forward, for sure. That's the only thing that I can see that keeps families together. But interesting dynamic. If anybody had any thoughts or questions, I would love to hear them.